speaking with Captain Lovell. This is very exciting. So I wanted to ask you what it was like modeling for Louis Vuitton. What's it like to become a model?
Well, it was sort of unusual. Buzz Aldrin called me up and said they're looking for 3 astronauts. Annie Leibovitz was the photographer, well known. And fortunately, the wind was blowing, and we all looked up, and then she must have taken 1,000 pictures. And it was a lot of fun. It was a whole day shoot. One day, that was it.
I wanted to ask you a couple questions about your time as an astronaut. First launch. Are you nervous? 2
things about a first launch is, number one, you have to remember that my career prior to getting the space program was testing airplanes for the Navy. So as a test pilot, I was used to sudden crises that might be looming and things like that. Second of all, with a couple of years of training, you get to know the equipment very well. You get to know the people who built the equipment very well. And consequently, when you finally get into it for the final countdown, you know what you're supposed to do if something goes wrong.
Right.
It's part of the business of being an astronaut.
Right. But during that 10-second countdown, what is going through your mind?
It's actually happening when the countdown goes down towards 0. You're looking at all the instruments. You're looking at the fact that the fuel is starting to flow. You're looking at the rumbling of the engines. You're looking at the fact that the clock starts, because that indicates that the vehicle is off the ground.
Yeah.
You've got your hand on the abort handle in case something goes wrong.
Right.
That's all you're thinking about.
So it's all just right the job.
All right
on
down
the job.
the line, because you don't have time to think about anything else.
No, okay. Your most well-known mission is Apollo 13. After the movie, everybody knows about it. But which mission are you most fond of, thinking back?
Of the 4 missions that I flew, 2 Geminis and 2 Apollos, I think the mission which I remember most was Apollo 8.
Apollo 8.
Because Apollo 8 had a lot of new things going for it. We took off and made the very first flight from the Earth to another body out into space, the Moon. We were detached from the Earth and captured by the Moon's gravity, and we did that on Christmas Eve. And we saw for the first time, because you never see the far side of the Moon from the Earth, we saw the far side with our own eyes. There have been several pictures taken of it, but the first time people saw live on the far side of the Moon. And then we were very fortunate to come back on a flight that was almost perfect, whereas most flights have something going wrong with them, like 13 had a catastrophic event.
Right.
But Apollo 8 was a perfect flight.
Let's talk about 13 for just a minute.
Well, when the explosion first occurred, we didn't know what happened.
Right.
We didn't know how catastrophic it was, because it wasn't until after a little while that I looked out the window and saw the oxygen escaping, and I looked at my gauges, and the quantity gauges were going to 0, and consequently we knew that we were in deep trouble. We knew that we had lost the command module, but we knew also that that vehicle was the only vehicle that had a heat shield to get us back into the Earth's atmosphere. So we were forced into going into the lunar module, which had never been designed to come back home, doesn't have a heat shield. So we had to get in there to figure out what we had to work with and how to change our courses to get back on the proper course to get back into the Earth's atmosphere. So there was a series of crises with Apollo 13. One by one, we had to overcome them. We had to overcome the fact that our own exhalation was producing carbon dioxide. The amount of carbon dioxide was building up into the vehicle. And of course, carbon dioxide is poisonous in higher concentrations. The canisters to remove the carbon dioxide were being saturated, and we had to figure out some way of using the square canisters in the dead command module to fit into a round hole in the lunar module system. And we did that with duct tape, plastic, cardboard, and an old sock. 13 was not just another thrilling space adventure. It was really a classic case of crisis management.
Yeah. And how did you keep your head? How did you stay calm?
You always have to be an optimist. I believe God helps them who helps themselves.
Right.
It was sort of surprised that there was going to be a movie made of Apollo 13. We had started writing the book and had only 1 chapter completed.
Right.
When our agency sent that chapter to California, suddenly I got a call from the agency that they had sold the rights to the book. And I said, wait, we haven't written it yet. We only had written 1 chapter. Is it slightly illegal? And they said, no, it's done all the time. And we got together with Howard. We discussed the whole story. I did watch a little bit of the filming, but it's intimidating to an actor, even a famous actor like Tom Hanks, to portray me if I'm still alive and hanging on the back end of the camera watching what he's doing.
I was wondering if you would say into my recorder, Jake Jarvie, we have a problem.
Yeah, Jake Jarvie, we do have a problem.